Okay, our next session, Executive Digital Transformation with Low Code. I would like to introduce you to our speaker, Hans de Visser, Vice President, Product Manager at Mendix. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? Fine so far. It's a bit warm, but I like the venue here. As you can hear from my accent, I'm from the Netherlands, your neighboring country. I used to live in Germany for a while when I was a student, and I was always kind of referred to as the Rudi Carrel of the university because of my accent. For those of you who are old enough, you still know who Rudi Carrel is, right? Okay, good. I'm going to speak today about low code, and it's a style of application development that is really up and coming. So what I would like to do is introduce you to it and also share the kind of experiences that we have with it for our customers. And I'd like to start testing your tech knowledge. Who of you knows who this guy is? Come on, we're on a tech conference, right? I'll help you a little bit. It's a guy called Marc Andreessen. He is actually one of the founders of Netscape. And again, if you're old enough, you still know what Netscape was about. It's one of the first internet or browsers out there. And this guy is a real technology geek, so he understands technology in and out. He became a very successful investor, and he is the co-founder of the firm Andreessen and Horowitz. And I'm bringing him up because he wrote a very intriguing article more than a decade ago. And this article was published in the Wall Street Journal on 20th of August 2011 with the title, Why Software is Eating the World. And at the background of the financial crisis that we were in at that time, he was referring to, in his view, too low valuations of technology stocks. And he saw that technology companies were making bets on, really innovative concepts with software, so to say, not using software as an enabler for your business, but rather as a driver for innovation, and in many cases, as a source of revenue generation. And he is one of the first investors in companies like Facebook, for example, Instagram, and also Twitter at the time. So he basically saw this coming. If you fast forward a decade later, there's no single company on the planet that is not having digital high on the agenda of the leadership, not just IT leadership, but leadership in general. It comes with challenges, though, and one of the observations that we have working with many clients across the globe is that there is a substantial higher level of demand than there is supply on the IT side. Reports from research that we're doing are stating that 78% of CIOs report increased demand for digital projects, and if you then look at the supply side of the house, it's really, a very, I would say, challenging story, because 1/3 of projects are actually delayed more than 6 months, and there's, too much dependency on more traditional IT technologies and IT approaches, so to say, to advance the digital agenda. And that's why low code is on the rise. Low code is a style of application development where you are using visual modeling techniques to create applications, not just for your user interface, but also for your domain model, for your logic, for basically setting your security parameters, as you have heard from the previous speaker, and so on. 70% of applications in the enterprise world will be developed by using low-code and no-code technologies, is a prediction from Gartner. And by the way, for those of you who are coming from the corporate world, most companies will actually use not just one low-code platform, but 4 or 5 low-code platforms. Some of them you get by virtue of just subscribing to a SaaS software business, like, for example, Salesforce CRM comes with Salesforce Lightning as a kind of low-code layer. Same applies for ServiceNow. Same applies for Power Apps coming from Microsoft, for example. And these companies, together with the other kind of best-of-breed players, as we are kind of categorized by Gartner, are basically shaping the low-code market. From a Mendix perspective, I represent the product management of Mendix. We are, by the way, a Siemens company. We were acquired by Siemens in 2018. We see 3 kind of challenges that we would like to solve for our customers, and we're really there to help customers advance their digital agenda. First one is miscommunication between business and IT, and this is where it all starts. I've been in more traditional application development projects, doing large client projects where you started with requirements analysis, making a functional design, then a technical design, then the developers kind of lock themselves up in rooms and start to craft the code for weeks, sometimes months, and then present something to the end user. And you all know about this kind of proverbial gap between business and IT, where people that are seeing the code for the first time or the application live in action are kind of shocked to see how little of their kind of imagination was kind of put in reality using that kind of traditional approach. The way how you develop in low code is really, really iterative. Like, in a matter of a few days, you build a first prototype, you start to test it with your end users or sometimes even your consumers. Try to make a minimum viable product as soon as possible, get it out, and then improve it in next iterations. Second one is the shortage of IT skilled people. This is a huge problem for most of the traditional companies that we work with. It's hard to get talent and it's hard to retain talent. And one of the things that low-code does for you is making sure that more people can develop. Most of the people in our developer community, which is around 250,000 people across the globe these days, are actually not hard coders from their background. They may have a degree in business administration, or they may have a degree in business information management. So they have a little technical affinity, but they're not just, .NET or Java programmers by background. And quite a few of those people are super successful in building applications where there's a lot of involvement from the business, and they are actually kind of bridging the gap between business and the more hardcore part of IT. And then the last one, I think particularly looking at the previous presentation, so all of the things that you can be exposed to from a security perspective, like for example this Log4j issue or any kind of open port stuff like that, you need to prevent. So shadow IT is the nightmare of corporate IT teams. And you need to kind of help the business to build applications under governance and in a kind of transparent manner, where there's no more servers sitting behind desks somewhere in the office that are just doing applications for you. You need to make it completely transparent and completely governed to make sure that you're not exposed from a compliance and from a security risk perspective. So the question is, what if you would have a platform that basically gives you a unified experience, not just for developers, but for the entire life cycle of the application? And it all starts with ideation, where you start to define your user requirements, make sprints out of it, track the backlog of developing those apps, and so on. Then you start to develop, and as I said, it's basically visual development. You test it, you deploy it, literally with one click to the cloud, or with maybe 2-3 clicks to a private cloud, which we support as well, or even on premises or on edge devices. And certainly in context, for example, in the manufacturing world, where there's a lot of alignment between OT, operation technology, and IT, there is basically a good use case for bringing more horsepower to edge devices running in factories, for example, to power factory operations, and then make a connection to the cloud for only the data that is relevant to be put on the cloud. Then the operations side basically monitors something literally from central dashboards with best-of-breed monitoring tools that you can attach to it, etc. So it's not just optimizing developer productivity, but literally the whole life cycle of the application is covered for you. There's a couple of advantages to this approach. First of all, you can leverage more of your workforce, so make more people actually developers. And some people are actually coming, not to develop, but they are collaborating in projects to basically make sure that the business requirements and also the needs are met in this cycle. From a technology and architecture perspective, we are taking a lot of your burden away so that you can really focus on functional development. All of the non-functionals, like the scaling aspects, the security, how you configure for fallbacks, stuff like that, it's all abstracted away and is done for you. By the way, if you need more control, you can get it. So it's not the case that it's kind of a completely, walled environment where there's no ways to break out of it. You can actually always, use, for example, additional code in conjunction with your low-code approach. And you can always use, the APIs in the platform to basically make it, for example, part of your complete tool chain. From an experiences perspective, this is another big challenge that we see most of the times. For example, building mobile experiences. Most of the kind of technologies are kind of hard to master if you are really wanting to create native mobile experiences. You are basically forced to work in the respective IDEs for Android and for the Apple ecosystem, for example. We've brought it all together. So with one set of models, you can go native mobile development for 2 platforms in just one go. We're using React Native under the hood, one of the most popular frameworks for mobile development these days, JavaScript based, and it's actually doing the job under the hood for those people who are not mastering all of the ins and outs of native mobile development. And by the way, the same applies for responsive web, so it scales automatically per your form factor. We support progressive web applications, so the whole range of kind of experiences literally come out of the box. And then the last one, engaging or deploying at your cloud of choice. By default, you would publish in the public cloud, which, by the way, for us runs on AWS. But you can also use EKS, AKS, and Red Hat OpenShift Kubernetes-based deployments in private cloud, literally with a single click. And that whole kind of spectrum of cloud deployments is also something that attracts organizations that are under pretty stringent security requirements and cannot, for example, for whatever reason, use public cloud sources. Good. Type of use cases. So across the board, we see 3 archetype use cases. The first one is around digitizing customer experiences. We do work a lot for insurance companies, building, for example, portals for end consumers to basically raise a quote themselves. We're working with banks and pension providers to make portals for people entitled to a pension so that they can look at their state, notify them about live events, and so on. Very popular use case. Most of the organizations that we work with are also automating business processes, like, for example, manual processes that are still not captured in your ERP type of systems or CRM systems. We typically call it the white space, where integrations are required, for example, between ERP and CRM, or ERP and your product lifecycle management system, or your actuaries in an insurance company that work with an underwriting workbench that they need to kind of automate. All of these processes are automated by subject matter experts, helped with people from corporate IT in literally, sometimes a matter of days, weeks, and for larger projects, just a few months. And then the last one is a kind of interesting development as well. More and more, because low-code in general is advancing, we're seeing that core systems are being replaced by low-code applications as well. And I've got an example later on that I will share with you in more detail. One interesting area is how we work with SAP. We have a strategic partnership with SAP. We're one of the software companies that are actually on their price list, so you can buy Mendix under the SAP brand. And we're helping a lot of companies who are making the migration right now from their traditional ECC on-premise instances to S/4HANA to basically keep the core clean and make sure that they can build the customizations that they've done in the past that became this kind of chain ball around your ankle, bring that to a separate layer, completely detached and decoupled from the core SAP layer. So that gives you way more flexibility to do upgrades, for example, of your S/4HANA system whenever you want. You're not going to be confronted with a huge maintenance burden because all of your customizations and additional extensions are kept in a separate layer. One example of low-code on steroids, we're working with PostNL, which is the incumbent postal and parcel delivery company in my home country, the Netherlands. And they've actually looked at the way how they do parcel delivery, and they were forced to replace an existing order management system. So they looked at options in the market, like, for example, they are a big SAP user as well. So could SAP do the job, or other kind of specific niche products in that market? And they came to the conclusion that they'd rather build it from scratch because they wanted to really optimize the whole parcel delivery aspect. They wanted to be able to merge multiple streams, like, for example, dry parcels and parcels under certain conditions, for example, medical stuff that they would bring to consumers or to clients, needed to be temperature controlled, and really optimize also the routing, etc. And they started to build this order management system using our platform, using a microservices architecture. So there's around 15 to 20 individual services that do the job, that they can scale independently, that they can release independently. And from a deployment perspective, it's what we call a distributed deployment with one instance per distribution center that they have in the Netherlands. And there's around 30 to 35 of those around. And this system transacts more than 40 million transactions per day. So it's basically prime time. If they would not be able to basically spin up the machines, or if something would go wrong, they will hit the newspaper for sure. And this whole system basically is built on low code. So I just want to make you aware of the fact that low code is not just for departmental level or personal productivity type of applications that you see a lot, for example, in the Microsoft context, like optimizing or making a SharePoint checklist or anything like that. It's really scalable these days and can do prime time type of applications. Which brings me to the next one. The pattern that we observe going on in the market right now is around composition. So really make sure that you are creating your application experiences for very specific target audiences and assemble that for using particular building blocks. Some of those building blocks could come from commercial off-the-shelf vendors, like a CRM piece of logic or an ERP piece of logic. But the essence is that you start to create assemblies and compositions that are really targeted for people that are having to do something with your application in the context. Like, for example, if you would be a field service engineer at a site, you don't need to see all of the orders that may be relevant for you. You only need to be pointed at the right orders, for the moment in time, and, for example, get PDFs, etc., downloaded on your device. So the tailored experiences are very specific for the outcome that you would like to achieve. And in order to do this, you need a kind of platform that helps you to do composition. If you're subscribed to Gartner services, I would recommend you to read about the Composable Enterprise, which is a kind of research topic that they write about a lot. And Gartner basically predicts that low-code platforms in general, so not just Mendix, but low-code platforms, become the precursor of a new style of application platforms, all about composition. And there's a couple of things that you need to kind of unify in such a platform. Like, for example, doing orchestration, doing integration, doing back-end development, and doing front-end development. And that's exactly where we are taking our platform as well. Just to illustrate, we have our background in application development, but we start to expand into adjacent technology domains. This is, by the way, not unique for Mendix. All of the kind of low-code leaders, so to say, are taking this direction. If you watch Microsoft, for example, if you watch what ServiceNow are doing, they're focusing, for example, on process automation, applying AI techniques as part of your low-code experience, and so on. And we take a more kind of holistic approach, and we have been fortunate to be able to build this platform from scratch. So all of the experiences that we're also developing for the developers themselves are brought in one single platform. So there's not like an array of technologies that we need to bring to the table. It's all based on one single IDE that we are bringing to build those experiences. And just to highlight that real quick, you see the kind of pie chart here. So application development, where the root is. Multi-experience development, I just explained, form factors, native mobile, using augmented reality type of techniques. Intelligent automation with workflow concepts powered by app services coming, for example, from the hyperscalers like image recognition, text-to-speech, speech-to-text type of services that you can literally drag and drop on your canvas to create those experiences with your application. The role of data integration, where we have the ambition to kind of close the last mile of using enterprise data at your fingertips, literally browsing through a catalog of APIs that you can use from, for example, other more transactional systems, and then artificial intelligence, which works in two ways in our platform. First of all, AI-assisted development, where we are actively assisting you to build logic. We have around 80 million patterns that we are holding in our cloud repository that are completely anonymized, and that we have kind of trained using TensorFlow for predicting what the next logical thing would be if you build logic in Mendix. And the accuracy that we have achieved so far is 96%. It's used by 60% of our developers, and 40% of the scope that developers are building is actually directly influenced by recommendations that we make. So that's how far technology has already gotten, provided that you have the data. And we're fortunate that the cloud repository that we have is kind of growing on a day-by-day basis, so we constantly can optimize the kind of recommendations that we get for developers. The second part of AI is using AI services, like I just mentioned, so hyperscaler services like TensorFlow, machine learning patterns, text-to-speech, and so on, and make it super easy to, for example, train a model and package such a trained model with your application code. The example I just gave on PostNL, once they had the order management system in place, they started to look at, can we actually predict whether people are at home? Because it saves us travel time and also return calls, so to say, if we are observing the patterns when people are typically home and the doors are open, so to say, and then we can optimize the routing for what we observe when people are available, yes or no. And that's just another kind of application or model that they built, and they deployed it in conjunction with the order management system. I've talked a lot about technology, but there's actually more fundamental things that you need to do if you start the low-code journey. Actually, technology only ranks number 5 on the kind of headache board of CIOs. And most of the challenges are more organizational, people-oriented, process-oriented, governance-oriented, and so on. We've learned this the hard way working with many customers, and we have really invested, apart from the platform technology, in an approach which we call the digital execution practice. And we are advising customers to basically look at digital transformation using a low-code platform more holistically, following the four Ps. So the people aspect, the portfolio aspect, the process aspect, and then last but not least, the platform aspect. And we know for a fact that these other 3 are equally, if not even more important than the ones that I just mentioned around the platform. Brings me to my last point, and then we can open it up for discussion as well. We're also experienced in helping you to kind of get on the journey. And we're typically advising you to follow a 3-stage approach: start, structure, and scale. Start with a small application and identify from the portfolio of potential project candidates which one would yield the biggest wow effect. So, does something good for the business, but also is something which is kind of giving an unexpected experience. Because you could choose a project where nobody says, well, actually, yeah, okay, fair, any technology would do the job. You need to create that wow effect, and then it sparks the energy in the organization, and then you start to kind of work on a larger portfolio in the structure phase. We're also helping you to get you up to speed, for example, with a center of excellence or center of expertise in your organization so that you can master it yourself, rather than being dependent on people from the outside, from partners, for example. And then the last part is scale. We're helping quite a few customers, including our mothership, Siemens, to really apply low-code at scale. Just to give you some figures, after the acquisition of Mendix by Siemens, we started working with their corporate IT team, with Siemens Global Business Services, with Siemens Financial Services, and in 2.5 years' time, creating what we call application factory lines, where we are literally, methodically producing applications on demand of the business. We've created more than 375 applications for various areas of the business. So corporate functions, but also in factories and so on. And it's kind of, very successful journey that we embarked on. And that's basically the kind of approach that we would recommend any customer to kind of grow from, the first experiences with low code all the way to scaling. With that, I would like to thank you for your attention. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them, of course.